Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to briefly discuss the trouble that Rishi Sunak has coming for him next May. I don't mean specifically the local elections, although those will be the trigger for it. I mean the potential for a serious rebellion against his leadership. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, although Rishi Sunak is the pick for most Tory MPs, he does not have universal backing. There are those who want Boris Johnson to come back, in the party as well as the media. You know, there are others who are opposed to Sunak, but not necessarily in Johnson's corner either. But it's the Johnson supporters I need to talk about here. So just as with Liz Truss, they are biding their time at the moment. With Truss, they just had to sit it out. They just thought to themselves, right, wait for it to crash, which she absolutely will because she's an idiot, and then bring Johnson back. And it almost worked until he pulled out of the contest, despite actually having the numbers we now know to get onto the ballot for members. Which makes you wonder if the Johnson supporters even have any purpose anymore. After all, even if they can bring Sunak down, which will be harder than it was for Truss, you know, who not only blew up the economy but had no natural support within Parliament to protect her. You know, Sunak is not mad, and he does have a lot of support in Parliament. If Johnson won't actually stand, you think, well, what's the point of even trying to bring him down? It may well be that Johnson doesn't even have the option. The Privileges Committee investigation, now underway behind closed doors, may finish him off and this issue largely goes away. It would certainly become less of a headache for Sunak. But if the investigation still allows Johnson to remain an MP, would he even be willing to stand as leader again? Because we've already seen he's backed out once. He can now see he's getting a fortune for delivering speeches to drunk MAGA goons in America. He got more for one speech recently in America than 2 years' salary as Prime Minister. Or at least thereabouts. If Johnson takes the helm again but loses the election, he will damage his reputation and as a result, his earning power. Blair and Thatcher were well regarded as politicians, largely because they won several elections but never lost one. Johnson can claim the same if you count his mayoral contest. Does he really want to hurt his earning potential with a last hurrah at the wheel of a dying Conservative brand? You know, but then in a sense, Johnson doesn't have to want to lead the party again. He only needs to not rule it out. And he could do that out of spite, to trip up his successor, to make out that no one can be successful other than him. So he just needs to not rule it out. If he gives his supporters any notion at all that the reason he pulled out last time was because MPs really wanted Sunak, then his supporters could imagine, well, there's nothing to stop him taking over against once Sunak has failed. And indeed, that may be the case. And I'm not just speculating here. We can see it in how some of Johnson's supporters are chipping away at Sunak. You know, cue former Tory MEP and Johnson advocate David Bannerman, who approved of a random message talking about Sunak being headed for electoral doom, which is probably true, and that only Johnson can win that election, which is certainly not true. And Bannerman suggesting that the local elections will confirm the choice. Confirm the choice? What does that mean? Clearly from the context, the narrative is going to be as follows. If the Conservatives do badly in the local elections, it will be proof that the Conservatives should have kept Johnson. Brexiteers are very fond of alternate realities where they say what would have happened with absolute conviction. Never mind the fact that Johnson failed miserably in last year's local elections. No, as far as they're concerned, he would definitely have done well in next year's. You know, he despite a 2-week smear campaign against Labour from the Daily Mail during the local or in the run-up to local elections last year, the Tories still did very, very badly under Johnson. But no. They're going to pull out all the stops to get rid of Sunak on the basis that there are no more credible alternatives to try out. If Johnson survives the Privileges Committee investigation, they will argue there's no further reason to keep backing losers when they have a proven winner. And there'll be no local election result that will satisfy them that Sunak is working out as well as anyone could. If the Tories lose more seats than they did this year, they'll take that as proof Johnson was better. Never mind the fact the Tories have way more seats to lose in next year's local elections, that it might actually represent a smaller proportional loss. They're not interested in numbers, they're Brexiteers. You may ask, what if the local elections don't go badly for the Tories? Well, they will. That's guaranteed. They know that's guaranteed. Rishi Sunak may appear more sane than his predecessors, but he's not a good politician. He's not enjoying universal backing from the right-wing media, which may not change in the next 6 months. People are seriously thinking about a change of government now. the country will be in recession. And Labour did really badly in the equivalent local elections last time around. So unlike this year, when they already had most of the seats and it was difficult to pick anything up, and yet they still made gains. In next year's local elections, Labour have a lot of target seats. They will be expecting a lot of wins. I can absolutely believe that Johnson's supporters are setting their time bomb to go off after these local elections. They will make it their test of his electability. If he has what it takes to win a general election, he'll have what it takes to do well in the local elections, they'll say. And if they do, if they really go for it, what then? They don't actually have the numbers to bring Sunak down. Sunak will still be safe from a confidence vote for almost half a year after that. Sunak's backers in Parliament will understand that the results would have been no better with Johnson and could well have been worse. So they certainly won't drop Sunak just to get the guaranteed loser back. So what did Johnson's supporters do then? Well, they'll rile up the membership, do the same to Johnson's supporters amongst the public. Reform UK will identify it as another recruitment window. It'll be like the summer of 2019 for them, though probably on a smaller scale. Back then, the Tories dropped to a low of 17% under Theresa May, your voters supporting them. But it was a mad time. The voters weren't impressed by anyone. Labour were on 19%. The Lib Dems were on about 20%. The Brexit Party going ahead on 26%. It was all insane. Of course, we know that if the Tories suffer another crash in the polls next summer, even if not as bad as in 2019, Labour won't crash with them. They will surge ahead. We've seen that already. But it is likely to mean that the Conservatives lose support everywhere. They'll lose some to Labour. They'll lose some to the Lib Dems. They'll lose some to Reform UK. They will be fighting on multiple fronts and they're not experienced at doing that. And with Rishi Sunak at the helm, they do not have an experienced, savvy politician. Even if Johnson's backers in the Parliamentary Party don't do anything as aggressive as vote against Sunak's legislation and budgets, and they may still try and do a little bit of that in the short term, the prominent media commentators could do the government enough damage. Because now that Labour are in a position of credibility with the public, it hardly matters to them where Tory support drains to, as long as it drains somewhere. And Sunak, even if he is mindful of the threat, will have limited scope for dealing with it. If his government was otherwise functioning, he could look at this, because I can look at it now, he can absolutely do the same, and think, right, we're going to have a showdown in May, right? And what can we do to avert it? What can we do to cut the rug from under the legs? But long-term planning is not easy when you're putting out immediate fires all the time. In Sunak's in-tray of banana skins is the potential for Suella Braverman to be caught threatening national security again, the bullying allegations against Dominic Raab, the investigation into Gavin Williamson, even though he's no longer in government. He was close to Sunak and the association will hurt him. And then there's the little matter of the knackered economy, the highest tax burden for generations, the highest rate of inflation for decades, the underfunding of public services, an absolutely hideous NHS winter crisis coming up, a general winter of discontent, the country itself falling apart, basically. And every time the gap between Labour and the Conservatives increases, as it has done in a few polls this week, it will be panic stations. Frankly, the gap is already so large that for every month it hasn't narrowed significantly, that is a problem for Sunak. He could easily be distracted by weekly calamities, and then suddenly the local elections are on him, and a load of Johnson supporters who've been planning for 6 months in both the media and the Parliamentary Party are waiting to mug him once the results are in. Unless Sunak can somehow work miracles against all the signs that he's capable of doing so, then he's going to struggle to hold his support together for next summer. Because consider this, at the last local elections, in this year's local elections, there was Tory papers were saying things like, oh, Labour are on for this sort of win, and it was a ridiculous. They were trying to make out Labour were going to win every seat in the land, which was stupid. So then what happened when Labour won a large number, but still a much smaller number than was being reported in the Tory press? It was like, oh, Boris Johnson did really well. They were on for losing this many seats, and he only lost this many seats, to make it sound good. They'll do the same trick in reverse with Sunak, won't they? If they're not interested in supporting Sunak, they can pull the same trick. They can say, oh, this is going to be terrible. The Conservatives are going to lose X number of seats. And then when it's X plus 300, they can go, oh my God, that's even worse. He's terrible. He's going to have a tough old time if he does not get the media on his side. And at the moment, he is not getting the media on his side. You know, he's going to struggle to hold any sort of support together next summer, at least amongst the voting public. But there we are anyway. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.